Hi, this is David Fine with Keys Moths. This is part 2 of our El Salvador adventure. We, last time, were in El Salvador on the northwest part of the country, right on the coast, down at sea level or just in the hills there. We saw some great butterflies, not a whole lot of moths, but now we've traveled all the way across the country to where my wife was born, Corinto. It's in Morazan, the province Morazan. I think you're going to be very interested in some of the bugs that we find here. Stay tuned, check it out. Well, our Tio Sergio picked us up here at the airport after we were done in El Sunsal, and he drove us like 5.5 hours all the way across the other side of the country to this little tiny town called Corinto. It's in the province Morazan. It's right near the border of Honduras, down in the eastern part of the country. And my wife's family, a lot of them still live there. Mi suegro has property there. He has cattle farms there. But these folks have a very simple life. They live off the land. They grow coffee, and the coffee is good. It's so good, and it's strong. Okay, us Americans can't handle a whole lot of it. It's strong coffee, but it's good coffee. They grow sugar cane. They have chickens, and they grow for eggs. And their main bulk of their income comes from making cheese, which comes from the cows that they raise. So they have mi suegro and mi Tio Sergio, they have a whole bunch of cows, and that's what they do every day. They wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, they go out and they start milking cows. They do that twice a day, and they take care of those cows, because what they do is they bring them back and they make this cheese, which they sell at the local markets. And so I got to see that entire process. Pretty interesting how that all works out. But the life is beautiful. Again, super hospitable, and just the quiet, the peace up in the mountains of mountainous regions of Central America. It's such a beautiful place. I just so much enjoyed spending that time with my wife's family, out in the sounds of nature, getting to see all the beautiful things that we saw. So the last time I came to El Salvador was in the August of 2006, a few months after my wife and I got married. We came down to visit some of her family here, and we got to meet all the cousins, meet all of her aunts and uncles, and I saw some of the cool butterflies we saw then. We actually got to see some blue morphos fly by. We're hoping to see some blue morphos on this trip. We haven't seen any yet, but we're hoping to see some as we go exploring. But right off the bat, being a guy from the Florida Keys, there was something that I noticed that was so exciting to me. I saw my first Unica monoma, which is the dingy purplewing in South Florida, and it was sitting on a mango tree, and I was so excited to see a Unica monoma down in El Salvador. It's a different subspecies down there, but still a super cool bug. But within a few minutes, I started seeing Unica after Unica after Unica after Unica, and it didn't take long for me to understand or see that there was a massive dispersal of these butterflies, and there were thousands and thousands of Unica monoma. The dingy purplewings had some kind of a migration or dispersal going on, and you could see them in the trees, you could see them in the dirt, you could see them pretty much everywhere you looked, and even way up in the sky. If you looked up, 60, 70, 80 feet up in the air, they were flying by all in the same direction. So they were going somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where they went, but I really am glad that they allowed me to photograph them and take some cool video. So while we were looking at all of these Unica monomas, we found a gem in amongst the monomas. We found this incredibly beautiful butterfly, one of the most stunning butterflies that we saw in the entire trip, Unica caressa. This metallic, intensely metallic purple butterfly. Last time we were in El Salvador back in 2006, we probably saw 3 or 4 of them. This was the only one we saw on this trip, but it was perched nice and happily on a mango tree leaf at eye level, and it let me take some great pictures and great videos of it. Amazing butterfly. And we didn't waste any time when we were in Corinto. We walked around the little paths that go up and through the mountains, and that's how people go from house to house. There's these little paths that cut through the mountains, and we saw some of the most incredible landscape as we were going from house to house visiting my wife's family. There's this one ridge that goes around on the side of this hill. What a beautiful landscape it was. You could just see all the mountains in the distance. I think you could even see Honduras from where we were. But we just saw some really cool butterflies. We saw these little checker spots. We saw malachites. They were everywhere. We saw malachites. We saw Heliconius irado petaverana, this beautiful red and yellow and black heliconid species that comes into Texas every now and then. We saw that laying eggs. Saw some incredible butterflies, and we're so happy we did. Saw some really neat, again, the banded daggerwing. We saw one back in El Sunsal, but we saw another one here in Corinto. He was sitting on the mud, stunning creature, incredible butterflies at this place. While walking around these paths, you know, we explored my father-in-law's property. We got to see his cattle there as we're walking around in the hills. We got to see these two young bull cattle, and they were kind of practicing their little sparring thing. I think when they get a little bigger, it may get a little bit more violent than that. But unfortunately, one of them didn't have horns, and he didn't seem to care. He was still going at it, man. These things have quite a temper at times. But it was neat to see the life out there in the countryside. That brought us along to a hammock that borders the property there. I think it was an abandoned mango farm, but the trees had grown way up and it was super overgrown. Lorenzo and I explored there. We saw some really neat ethomid butterflies, these little glass wings. We saw some things like that. We saw malachites, a lot of great butterflies in that property. We had a super great time. Check out some of the images and creatures that we saw in our explorations during the daytime in Corinto, El Salvador. So we discovered in El Sunsal that early June probably isn't the best time to look for moths while in El Salvador. But now we're up in the mountains, so we're gonna put lights out and see how we do anyway. And we found that within a few minutes of putting lights out in the mountains, we had a ton of moths come. There were a lot of moths, and unfortunately not a whole lot that was big. But before we put our lights on, one of my wife's cousins, Daniela, she brought me, very proudly I might add, this huge silk moth, beautiful silk moth. I still don't know what it is, but what a stunning, stunning moth that was. And she was so happy, and she was smiling from ear to ear when I told her when she saw how happy I was to see this moth. So we put lights out. We saw a lot of moths, a lot of geometric moths, these geometer moths, tons of things like that, tons of noctuid moths. We saw the Egyptian hieroglyph moth. They were out in numbers. That was pretty cool. We have those in the Keys from time to time. But also, whenever you're in the tropics, you're going to get a large number of these little arctiid wasp moths. They're these little wasp mimic moths, and they're vibrantly colored, absolutely beautifully colored. We got to see a ton of those things as they were coming to the lights. I always love seeing the arctiids anywhere we go, especially in the tropics. We also saw quite a few neat pyralid moths, these little micros and things like that, very, very brightly colored. We saw a few sphinx moths, not a whole lot. In fact, there was very few sphingid species. We did find one Uranus species on the side of my aunt's house underneath a little porch light, but there wasn't a whole lot of sphinx moths. I believe it was the beginning of rainy season. A lot of those larger sphinxes and saturnids probably come out later in the rainy season. Last time we were down in August in 2006, in August, there was a lot more saturnids and a lot more sphinx moths. So probably timing in the year, but we did see a lot of moths, which was really, really cool. Kind of the fun thing, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning thinking I was going to be beating people up. Needless to say, my wife's Theo, him and his guys were up earlier than I was, milking cows by the time I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But I got up at 4 o'clock before the sun comes up to go out and see what kind of moths were sitting at my lights. And I was astounded to see, as I got out there, there was chickens. All of their chickens came and were gorging on my moths. It was crazy. I'm like, I can't believe that I'm sharing moths with chickens and cats. There was a cat there. It was coming. It was eating my moths. This huge ghost moth, which I hadn't seen one of yet. It's the first one I ever saw. I saw it fly towards the light and it hit the ground, and I ran over to it, but before I could get to it, this cat pounced on it and chewed it, and it was not a very cool scenario. It wasn't a good day for the ghost moth, unfortunately. But we did see a lot of neat moths, super great time, got some great pictures. Guys, check out some of these images and videos from some of the moths and butterflies that we saw during our time in Corinto, Morazán, El Salvador. Check it out. So before we go, I think it was neat to see, we were able to show our kids the place, actually the house where my wife was born. Unfortunately, that house had been long abandoned and had been torn down, but there were still some remnants of the building, some of the concrete cinder blocks, but there was vines growing all in there. But my wife got to show my kids and I actually the house where she was born. It's up on the hill and her dad's property. That was pretty cool. You know, I love Latin American culture, the music, the sounds, the language, learning. Estoy aprendiendo a hablar español. I'm learning. Be patient with me, familia. I'm trying as best I can. I'm getting there though. The kids are getting there too. But I love the culture down there. The food is amazing. The people are so warm and friendly. They treated us so nice. And to finish our time off, we went down into downtown Corinto one night, on our last night there, to a pupusaria. Now, pupusas are, if you think of a pupusa like this, when you go to America, you're going to have a cheeseburger. It's classic American food. Well, when you go to El Salvador, the American cheeseburger equivalent is the pupusa. It's a corn tortilla, kind of like, it's a thick corn tortilla, and inside they jam it with either refried beans. My favorite is revuelta. They jam it with all kinds of goodness. I'm not even sure what's in it, but it just tastes so good. You can get them with cheese or beans, chicken, and we had some great pupusas there at this little pupusaria, which is a store that sells pupusas in Corinto. And afterwards, we went for a walk down there at the park, and there's a Catholic church there, and the walls were white. See, we don't have many buildings with white walls and mercury vapor lights in America anymore. They've gone to more efficient lighting systems. But when we pulled up, I was amazed at all the moths flying around these lights. Unfortunately, the lights were pretty tall. I couldn't really get to them, but we saw some really neat activity going on at those lights. The kids played. We had a great time with family, and we were so blessed by our time in El Salvador. Guys, if you ever get a chance to go down there, it's a beautiful country. You're going to be amazed by the people, amazed by the sights, amazed by the sounds, amazed by the natural wonders that you get to see kind of in the backyard of the average Salvadorian people. But that's all the time we have for today. So until next time, we would love it if you'd give us a thumbs up. like the video down here below, and subscribe to our channel, because we're doing a lot of adventures in the Florida Keys, and we're not limited to the Keys. We're exploring South Florida. We're exploring North America. We have a Costa Rica video coming out. Great videos, great education things. Check out our Wacky Worms series, where we're highlighting the life cycles of the butterflies and moths of South Florida. We're gonna tell you more information than you ever wanted to know about how to find and understand the butterflies and moths of South Florida. Subscribe to our channel, hit the little bell that gives you notifications. That way, when we put out these new videos, you'll get them in real time and be able to keep up to date with what's going on at Keys Moths. Like us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us there, that would be fantastic. And we have a great website. It's www.keysmoths.com. We've got all of our information, all of our images housed there with our research on butterflies and moths of the Florida Keys. But until next time, guys, enjoy South Florida and enjoy El Salvador. Hasta luego.